The production possibilities. It is a fact that we all have different knowledge and skills. If you're watching and learning from my videos, it's probably because I know more about economics than you. I promise I'm not flexing this time. Where my strengths might be in economics, yours could be in something like language, music, art, or science. This diversity of strengths is very important, not just on a practical, real-world level, but from a storytelling perspective as well. In the real world, we have doctors and mechanics who specialize in their own trade, so I don't have to know how to recognize certain diseases or change the oil in my car. At the same time, I may one day be of use to the doctor and mechanic by providing them with entertainment through my storytelling. Now, the beautiful thing about embracing this diversity of skills is that it allows a greater production possibility. Production of what? Well, that depends on what exactly you're applying it to. So let's look at it from a purely economic perspective first. Production possibilities are most easily illustrated when talking about what an individual can do. So, young writer, let's take you into account. Your options here are to spend all your time writing or all your time researching. I'm not going to say what's right and what's wrong, but your production is based on these two aspects. One of the things you're going to realize about econ is that in order to understand our models, we tend to assign arbitrary values to things that can't really be measured, like joy or knowledge. Like right now, as I decide you receive units of know-how from research. Now, in this case, you can spend all your time writing and manage 6 pages of output of your story, but 0 units of know-how. Another possibility is to spend half your time writing and half your time researching, so you get 3 pages of output for your story and 6 units of know-how. If you don't want to pick up a pen for the day, yet another possibility is 0 pages of output for your story and 12 units of know-how. As with all things in economics, we can plot this information and get a lovely curve from it. This is the production possibility curve, or the PPC, and we show it here on the production possibility frontier, or the PPF. Anything that takes place within this curve is possible to achieve given your current abilities and the amount of time you have. If you increase your abilities in time, the curve can shift out. If you decrease your time, the curve can shift in. Now you're probably wondering what this has to do with specialization, and if not specialization, what it has to do with your writing. I'll get to both, I promise. One of the ways that you can expand your production possibilities is by adding resources or by getting help. As a general rule, when you add the production possibilities of 2 different people, the production is greater altogether. It's an additive effect. So let's look at this in terms of absolutes. You know that the most pages you can write is 6, and the most units of know-how you can acquire is 12. We can say that the cost of achieving either of these is so much effort or so many hours of work. But rather than introducing more factors to worry about, let's look at their price with regard to one another. 1 page of storytelling is worth 2 units of know-how, or 1 unit of know-how is worth half a page. In this scenario, I have decided to help you with your story. Under the same conditions, I can write 8 pages up for a story, or gain 8 units of know-how. For me, 1 page equals 1 unit of know-how. What this means for us is you have both a comparative and absolute advantage in research, whereas I have a comparative and absolute advantage in writing. If we were to both capitalize on our strengths and work together, we would be able to get more writing and research done than if we were to work alone. Now, these problems can get far more complex when no one has an absolute advantage, like if you can write 9 pages instead of 6. Here we have to determine who, when we work out the relative cost of writing and research, has the lower opportunity cost. It costs me a whole page to earn 1 unit of know-how, but it costs you 3/4 of a page to earn 1 unit of know-how. So because your cost is lower, it still makes sense for you to focus on the research of this endeavor of ours. The application of production possibilities is a little more exciting, I promise. I'll go more in depth with this when I make a video about trading specifically. Consider first how one area can help another, how much they can trade, and whether or not that will allow them to specialize. In Moana, the people of Motunui each have a role on the island, a specialty, but as an isolated economy, they are able to function very well until their resources start to dwindle. On a macro level, Panam operates in extreme specialization according to the region and functions only because all the districts are forced to send their resources to the capital. Of course, I would never consider the economy in the Hunger Games to be open or free, but it offers a clear simplistic view of specialization on a larger level. This specialization is actually quite common for larger casts of characters. The difference here is while it's important to know the general role of a character, it's essential that your character isn't defined by their one or two specialties, lest they come out as one or two dimensional as their PPF. Characters, like a real economy, don't have a PPF composed of 2 dimensions, but many of them with axes denoting their strengths. How then is this model useful to your characters if they're so much more complex than a 2-dimensional graph? Consider the comparative advantage again. Consider how the 2 of us working together on a story can get so much more done than working alone, even if you're a better writer and researcher. One character doesn't have to be better than another at something to be able to help them. And some of the best instances in stories are when comparative advantages come into play. In Neverwhere by Neil Gaiman, there is a point where 3 characters are faced with 3 ordeals that must be taken on alone. In the first 2, Hunter and Dora are able to capitalize on their absolute strengths to complete them. But when it comes to the 3rd mysterious ordeal, neither Hunter nor Dora want Richard to attempt it because he is disadvantaged. He has no strength, he has no magic, he's really not done anything up to this point in the story to prove himself as more capable than his other 2 companions. His companions even go as far as to lament the fact that it is him, and not someone else entirely, who is given the responsibility of an ordeal. But because he has the comparative advantage, he is the one to take on the ordeal alone. I personally love the narrative tension derived from an event in which someone takes on a task only because they have a comparative advantage, and not an absolute. The great hero can't be everywhere at once and do everything for their friends, so the farm boy has to step up and help in a way that they can. It's a great way to really bring out a character who might not be as smart, as strong, or as skilled as another. As I said before, I promise to go more in depth with these concepts specifically for trade in a later video, but I think knowing these economic concepts will help you with your story structure and visualizing the dimensions of characters. If you have any questions or comments, please feel free to reach out to me. Be sure to check out the first episode of Economics for Writers if you haven't done so already, and if you know a writer who's looking for a different kind of writing advice, please send them my way. Break's over, now it's time to get back to writing.